Stop trying to make him miss you by disappearing. I know that sounds backwards, but here's what nobody tells you about male psychology. The harder you try to be missed, the more forgettable you become. And I'm about to prove it to you in the next few minutes with science, real psychology, and strategies that actually work. Right now, you're probably doing one of three things. You're either giving him everything he wants when he wants it, you're playing hard to get and hoping he'll chase, or you're stuck in that middle ground where you're trying to be perfect and wondering why he's losing interest. All three approaches have one thing in common. They're focused on him instead of you. But what if I told you that the women men obsess over, the ones they can't forget, the ones they chase for months or even years after things end, these women aren't playing games at all. They're operating from a completely different psychological framework. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that framework is and how to use it. Here's the truth that's going to change everything for you. Men don't miss women who try to be missed. They miss women who create emotional addiction. There's a massive difference, and understanding it will transform how you approach every interaction with him from this moment forward. Most advice tells you to pull back, be mysterious, don't text first. That's amateur hour. Those are tactics. What I'm going to teach you today is psychological warfare, but the elegant kind, the kind where he doesn't even realize what's happening to him. He just knows he needs more of you. So if you're tired of wondering if he's thinking about you, if you're done analyzing his texts for hidden meanings, and if you want to know what it feels like to have a man truly crave your presence, then pay attention to every word I'm about to say. Because I'm going to show you exactly how to rewire his brain to associate you with feelings he can't get anywhere else. Let's start with the biggest lie you've been told about making men miss you. Ready for this? The lie is that absence makes the heart grow fonder. That's not how the male brain works at all. Absence without emotional significance just creates indifference. But absence after emotional impact, that creates obsession. Think about your favorite song. You don't miss silence. You miss that specific melody, those lyrics, the way it makes you feel. That's emotional imprinting, and it's the secret to making a man miss you so intensely that he can't focus on anything else. Here's what actually happens in his brain when you disappear without creating that emotional imprint first. Nothing. Literally nothing. His mind doesn't search for you because there's nothing significant to search for. You become background noise that stopped playing, and he barely notices the difference. But when you understand how to create what I call emotional withdrawal, something fascinating happens. His brain starts actively seeking the feelings you gave him, not you specifically, but the way he felt around you. And when he can't find those feelings anywhere else, that's when the real missing begins. The science behind this is actually beautiful. There's a neurochemical response that happens when someone experiences pleasure and then has it suddenly removed. The brain releases dopamine, not when we get what we want, but when we're anticipating getting what we want. That anticipation creates a craving loop that's incredibly powerful. Women activate this backwards. They give dopamine hits constantly through texts, attention, and availability. Then they wonder why removing themselves doesn't create craving. It's because they never created the anticipation gap in the first place. So how do you create emotional withdrawal instead of just disappearing? It starts with understanding the three types of emotional memory that men form about women. The first is comfort memory. This is safe, predictable, nice. He remembers you fondly but doesn't crave you. The second is attraction memory. This is physical, exciting, but often shallow. He wants you physically but doesn't miss you specifically. But the third type, this is where magic happens. It's called identity memory. This is when you make him feel like a better version of himself, when you activate parts of his personality that he loves but rarely gets to express. When you see him in a way that makes him feel more alive, more capable, more interesting than he usually feels. Identity, memory is addiction because it's tied to his sense of self-worth. And when you're gone, he's not just missing you, he's missing who he is when he's with you. That's the difference between someone forgetting you exist and someone spending sleepless nights wondering when they'll see you again. Coming up, I'm going to show you exactly how to create identity memory in any man, regardless of how long you've known him or what your current situation is. But first, let me tell you about the one thing that kills identity memory faster than anything else. The identity memory killer is predictability. When a man can predict your reactions, your availability, your responses, your energy, you become emotionally flat in his mind. There's no mystery, no discovery, no reason for his brain to stay engaged with figuring you out. But here's where it gets interesting. Unpredictability doesn't mean being flaky or inconsistent. It means being emotionally dynamic. It means showing different layers of yourself at unexpected moments. It means being warm and connected one day and mysteriously busy the next. Not because you're playing games, but because you have a rich, full life that he gets glimpses of. The most magnetic women I know are like this. They're present when they're present and absent when they're absent. There's no desperation, no analysis, no wondering if they're doing the right thing. They flow with their own energy and let men adjust to their rhythm instead of the other way around. This creates what I call the emotional roller coaster effect. Not the unhealthy kind where you're hot and cold, but the intriguing kind where he never quite knows which version of you he's going to get, and he finds all of them fascinating. Now, let me show you exactly how to create identity memory with any man starting tonight. The key is learning to reflect back to him the parts of himself that he loves but doesn't get to express often enough. Every man has hidden aspects of his personality that he's proud of but rarely shows. Maybe he's funny but works in a serious job. Maybe he's creative but spends most of his time being practical. Maybe he's adventurous but lives a routine life. Maybe he's intelligent but is surrounded by people who don't appreciate that side of him. Your job is to become the woman who sees and celebrates these hidden aspects. Not in an obvious way, but subtly. When he makes a joke, don't just laugh. Tell him he has a unique sense of humor. When he shares an idea, don't just agree. Tell him he has an interesting mind. When he takes a small risk, acknowledge his adventurous spirit. Here's the key. Most women compliment men on obvious things, their looks, their job, their possessions. But the compliments that create identity memory are the ones that recognize character traits, personality quirks, and ways of being that he values but rarely hears acknowledged. When you do this consistently, something magical happens in his brain. You become associated with his favorite version of himself, and men become addicted to people who make them feel like their best selves. But here's the crucial part that most women miss. After you've created this identity memory, after you've shown him this version of himself, you have to create space for him to miss it. You can't be available all the time to give him that feeling. That's when the emotional withdrawal kicks in. This is where strategic absence becomes powerful. Not random absence, not game-playing absence, but intentional space that allows the emotional imprint you've created to echo in his mind. Coming up next, I'm going to give you the exact framework for creating and then leveraging emotional withdrawal, including specific techniques for texting and timing that will rewire how he thinks about you. Let's talk about the art of strategic presence and absence. This isn't about disappearing randomly or playing hard to get. This is about understanding emotional rhythm and using it to create a psychological pull that's almost impossible to resist. Here's the framework. I call it the peak and valley method. You create emotional peaks through meaningful connection, then valleys too. Through strategic absence, the contrast between these two states is what creates the craving. During peak moments, you're fully present, you're engaged, you're showing that hidden part of yourself, you're reflecting back his best qualities, you're creating emotional depth. These don't have to be long interactions. Sometimes the most powerful peaks are brief but intense moments of connection. Then, Instead of maintaining that same energy constantly, you create a valley. You become less available, not in a cold way, but in a mysterious way. You have other things going on. You're not always responsive. You're living your life, and he gets to be part of it sometimes, not all the time. The valley period is crucial because this is when his mind processes what happened during the peak. This is when the emotional memory solidifies. This is when he starts to crave the next peak experience with you. Most women are afraid of valleys. They think it means losing connection, but valleys are actually what make peaks meaningful. Without contrast, there's no intensity. Without space, there's no longing. Here's how to implement this in real life. Let's say you have an amazing conversation with him one night, great connection, laughter, depth. That's a peak. Instead of trying to recreate that same energy immediately through texts or calls, you allow space. You become a little less available for the next day or two. You let him sit with that positive experience without diluting it. During the valley period, you're not ignoring him completely, but you're not pursuing either. You're neutral, but warm when he reaches out. You're focused on your own life. You're creating mystery about what you're doing and who you're with. What happens during this time is fascinating. His brain starts replaying the peak experience. He starts wondering when it will happen again. He starts thinking about what you're doing. The emotional memory of how good he felt with you starts to intensify because it's not being diluted by constant contact. Now let's talk about specific tactics for creating emotional withdrawal in different situations, starting with texting, because this is where most women sabotage themselves without realizing it. The biggest mistake women make with texting is treating it like a conversation instead of like emotional currency. Every text should either build anticipation, create intrigue, or reinforce identity memory. Texting just to fill silence or maintain constant contact actually works against you. Here's a powerful text strategy. Instead of asking, "How was your day?" try something like, "Just had a thought about something you said yesterday. It's been stuck in my head." Then don't elaborate immediately. Let him ask what it was. This creates curiosity and shows that he's OCCs, upping mental space even when you're apart. Another approach is the callback text. Reference something specific from a previous conversation that showed his personality in a positive light. Saw something today that reminded me of that story you told about your trip to Japan. Your adventurous side is pretty attractive. This reinforces identity memory while creating a small dopamine hit. But here's the key with texting. Don't be constantly available to respond. Don't match his response time. Don't feel obligated to keep conversations going. Sometimes send something intriguing and then disappear for a few hours. Let him wonder what you're doing. This doesn't mean being rude or playing games. It means having a life outside of your phone. It means valuing your time and energy. It means understanding that immediate availability decreases your perceived value in his mind. Coming up, I'm going to show you how to handle the most challenging scenarios, including what to do if you've already been too available, and the biggest mistakes that can ruin everything. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. What if you've already been too available? What if you've been the one texting first, always responding immediately, always being accommodating? Can you turn this around? Absolutely. But it requires a strategic shift that might feel uncomfortable at first. The key is creating what I call a pattern interrupt. You have to break the predictable rhythm you've established and create curiosity about the change. Here's how to do it without being dramatic or obvious about it. Start by gradually decreasing your availability. Don't go from texting all day to radio silence. That's too jarring and will likely backfire. Instead, become slightly less responsive over a period of time. If you usually respond within 5 minutes, start taking 30 minutes. If you usually text good morning first, skip it sometimes. If you're always free when he wants to hang out, start having other plans occasionally. The goal is to create subtle confusion in his mind. He should start wondering why things feel different but not be able to pinpoint exactly what changed. This confusion creates mental engagement, and mental engagement is the first step toward craving. Here's the psychology behind why this works. When someone is consistently available, the brain categorizes them as a resource that will always be there. There's no urgency, no fear of loss, no reason to prioritize them. But when availability becomes uncertain, the brain recategorizes that person as something that might be lost, which triggers pursuit behavior. But you have to be careful during this transition. Don't become cold or distant. Don't punish him for your previous over-availability. Simply become more selective about when and how you engage. Show him that your time and energy are valuable resources that he has to earn access to. Now let's talk about the post-breakup scenario, because this is when the principles of emotional withdrawal are most powerful. If you've recently broken up with someone and want them to miss you intensely, the first thing you need to understand is that your instincts are probably wrong. Your instincts are telling you to reach out, to explain, to fix things, to show him what he's missing. All of these instincts work against you. They decrease mystery, reduce your value, and prevent the emotional withdrawal process from working. Instead, you need to disappear completely for a significant period, not just from his phone, but from his entire awareness. No social media interaction, no showing up where he might be, no contact through mutual friends. You need to become a ghost. But here's what makes this different from typical no-contact advice. While you're absent from his world, you're not sitting around waiting for him to reach out. You're actively improving your life in ways that would surprise him if he knew about them. The psychological effect of this approach is devastating in the best way. While he's expecting you to chase, to be broken, to need him, you're becoming someone who doesn't need anyone. That contradiction creates a cognitive dissonance that drives obsessive thinking. Let's talk about the mistakes that kill emotional withdrawal and make you forgettable instead of unforgettable. The first and biggest mistake is breaking your own absence. You create space, he starts missing you, you feel the pull working, and then you reach out because you miss him too, or because you're afraid you're losing him. This completely destroys the psychological framework you've built. It shows him that your absence wasn't because you had better things to do, it was because you were playing a game. And once he realizes it's a game, he stops playing. Real emotional withdrawal only works when it's authentic, when you genuinely have a life that's full enough that you don't need constant contact with him, when your absence is a natural result of your priorities, not a calculated move to get attention. The second mistake is being inconsistent with your energy when you do interact. If you've created space and he reaches out, don't be cold or punishing. Be warm but brief. Be pleasant but not over-eager. Show him that you're happy to hear from him, but you're not desperate for his attention. Another critical mistake is neglecting to work on yourself during the absence periods. If you're creating space, but spending that time obsessing over him, stalking his social media, analyzing his behavior, you're still energetically available to him. You're still in that desperate, needy frequency, even if you're not expressing it outwardly. The most magnetic women use their alone time to become more interesting, more confident, more fulfilled. They pursue hobbies, build friendships, advance their careers, improve their health, explore new interests. When they do reconnect, they're genuinely more attractive because they've been growing. Now let's talk about the mindset that makes all of this effortless instead of exhausting. The women who naturally inspire obsession don't think about inspiring obsession. They think about living well. They think about honoring their own needs. They think about building a life that's so fulfilling that any man who wants to be part of it has to bring significant value. This mindset shift changes everything. Instead of asking, how do I make him miss me? You start asking, how do I create a life that's so amazing that anyone would miss being part of it? Instead of focusing on his behavior, you focus on your own growth. When you operate from this mindset, emotional withdrawal becomes natural. You're not available all the time because you have important things to do. You don't text constantly because you have other sources of fulfillment. You don't chase because you're not coming from a place of lack. This authentic self-focus creates the most powerful form of attraction because it's not needy or manipulative, it's simply magnetic. Men are drawn to women who are genuinely content with their own lives because that contentment is rare and attractive. Let's create your action plan for becoming the woman he can't forget. This isn't about following rules blindly, it's about understanding the principles and adapting them to your specific situation. Step 1 is immediate pattern disruption if you've been too available. Starting today, reduce your response time by 50%. If you usually text back in 5 minutes, take 10. If you usually respond immediately, wait an hour. This small change will create immediate curiosity without being dramatic. Step 2 is energy audit. Look at your last week of interactions with him. How much of your emotional energy went toward him versus toward your own life and goals? The ratio should be no more than 30% toward him, 70% toward yourself. If it's skewed the other direction, you have work to do. Step 3 is creating peak experiences. The next time you interact with him, focus entirely on creating emotional depth. Ask him questions that reveal his personality. Share something genuine about yourself. Make him laugh. Create a moment that stands out from typical interactions. Step 4 is strategic absence. After creating that peak experience, become less available for 48 to 72 hours. Don't initiate contact. Focus on your own life. Let him sit with that positive experience without diluting it. Step 5 is consistent implementation. This isn't a one-time strategy, it's a new way of operating. Continue the peak and valley rhythm. Continue prioritizing your own life. Continue being selective about when and how you engage. What if he doesn't respond the way you hope? This is crucial to understand. Not every man will respond to emotional withdrawal, and that's actually valuable information. If someone doesn't miss you when you're not constantly available, it means the connection wasn't as deep as you thought it was. Don't take this personally. Some people are just not compatible with you energetically. Some men prefer women who are always available because it's easier and requires less effort on their part. These are not the men you want. Anyway, the right man for you will respond to your increased self-respect and selectivity by stepping up his own game. He'll become more intentional about spending time with you. He'll be more present when you are together. He'll start valuing access to you because he realizes it's not guaranteed. Remember, the goal isn't to manipulate someone into wanting you. The goal is to present the most attractive version of yourself, which is a woman who values herself enough to have boundaries and standards. So yes, I've given you specific strategies for creating emotional withdrawal and making men miss you. But the real magic happens when you use these strategies to reconnect with your own power and worth. When you remember that you're not trying to convince anyone to want you, you're simply being selective about who gets access to the amazing woman you already are.